Hey everybody, this is Marian Cowie-Gowan.
And this is David Owen.
And this is You Show Me Yours, the podcast where a married couple talks about the movies and television that they loved before the first date. Except for this month. In the month of April, we are talking about movies from after our first date. We met in April 2003, so every April we change it up a little bit. And today I was made to watch the post-2003 film John Wick.
John Wick. Yeah, you were. John Wick, yeah. John Wick is, of course, as everyone knows, it's a movie about puppy murder.
Oh.
Yes.
This is the first time I've ever been so affected by a dog dying.
Yeah, this movie is really good at making you care about that dog.
Oh.
Yes, John Wick is, of course, the 2014 Chad Stahelski movie. Stahelski. I don't know. Yeah, Chad is pretty much known for doing John Wick. Actually, he's apparently a well-respected stunt coordinator and choreographer and stunt person.
That would make sense.
Which makes a lot of sense. Every now and then, a stunt man gets into directing. There's one he directed. I think the was it Shang-Chi, the Marvel movie. But yeah, every now and then a stunt coordinator gets into directing and they end up just doing these very great stunt heavy sort of movies that are just, they're just full of innovative and great stuff, ideas that a director was not necessarily going to take from them, but now they're the director. So they got, and I'm sure that they're great for the stunt people to work with and all that stuff. But yeah, John Wick, if you don't know, is a movie about a retired assassin who's pulled back into the game. And it's not an original story, but it's kind of an original take on it, I guess.
It kind of is. I always, when I'm watching a new movie, I think about, what combination of existing ones is this? And this is kind of like Mandy plus Grosse Point Blank.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's so there's a movie that you will see on this podcast eventually called The Replacement Killers.
Okay.
Do you remember Chow Yun-Fat?
Yes. I mean, the name, yes.
Yeah, so in the 90s, he was coming over to America. They were trying to make him a thing. And amongst those things that he did was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Okay.
Which was actually, that was Chinese language and, was imported into America. He also did The King and I. He played the king in the theatrical, the movie version of The King and I. And just, he's a very famous Hong Kong action actor. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that one of the vehicles that he was given was a movie with Mia Sorvino called Replacement Killers. Okay. This is very much like Crow meets The Replacement Killers for me because both of those movies are just, they drip with this very specific style.
Yeah.
And those are the vibes I get. But yeah, pick any two revenge movies and, put them together and it's probably this.
Yeah.
The writer of this movie, I did not write down his name, who is also mainly famous for writing the John Wick movies, also wrote the movie Nobody, which is just Bob Odenkirk doing John Wick.
Oh, that seems very odd.
But it's an interesting take on it because he is like a schlubby dad in the suburbs. And then the John Wick part starts.
Well,
so it's like, it's this interesting take. Like John Wick is already like this, he's a cool dude.
He kept himself in shape.
Yeah, he's in shape. He's a cool dude. Even without, and he's like, he's well off.
Yes.
Like, and schlubby dad, nobody, Bob Odenkirk is like hiding his wealth and, being inconspicuous and is just like a suburban dad.
That's true. If you put all your hitman earnings into like running a chain of 7-Elevens and then you had too many big gulps and you get a bit of a beer belly, like it's harder to get back in the game at that point.
Yes. But yeah, I mean, the plot on this one is super thin and super simple, but they do a lot with it. They do a lot around the edges. Keanu Reeves, of course. This movie just has a cast. Like,
yeah, it's a lot of familiar faces.
Yeah, and for this to have been like I don't know that you would call him a first-time director. I'm sure he's like maybe second unit and stuff or something before. I don't know, but to more or less give to get this kind of a cast for a movie like this. It's one of those things where like a movie that I showed you before this podcast existed was Boondock Saints, and it's kind of the same thing. It has Willem Dafoe in it, and what's his name, the Irishman, Billy O'Connell, is it?
Billy Connolly. He's
Sorry.
Scottish.
So is he Scottish?
Very important difference.
Isn't he playing Irish in that movie? I don't
Possibly.
know. Anyway, yeah. So it's one of those kind of things where like they got Ian McShane in this and Willem Dafoe. You know, your favorite Mayhem is in this.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You know,
yeah,
that
he's ruined his career by being Mayhem.
Oh yeah,
he can't be anything else. This is Dean Cassidy. This is Dean Winters. That's right. He was Brian Cassidy on Law and Order SVU, but he's been Mayhem in the Allstate insurance commercials, which that campaign's been going on for, I don't know, probably
a while,
possibly 10, 15 years.
Definitely pre 2014. Like he was Mayhem when this movie was made. Like I think they were leaning into that when they did this. But what is it? The Game of Thrones kid. What's his, Alfie Allen?
Oh, was he on? See, I never.
Yeah, he's one of the Game of Thrones kids.
Okay, and then Lance Reddick.
Lance Reddick is in this, which is like, you know, love him anytime.
You won't know her, but the female assassin is Adrienne Palicki, she was in Red Dawn, but I know her from Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, I've seen her and stuff.
Okay,
like she's familiar, and there's a lot of those kind of guys. There's a lot of like familiar faces. There is a very particular stunt man who was in a lot of stuff around this time, who is very recognizable by his handlebar mustache. He's always playing a heavy. He's got a big bushy beard and a handlebar mustache, and he's usually like the mid boss in a scene.
Yeah.
And he kind of is in this movie, but he more or less just gets handled, which is one of the things that I love about this movie that I'll talk about as I talk about like the stunts and the guns and stuff, about how they handle stuff like what I would say a mid boss, like a boss level character, how they handle it. Because a lot of times a movie like this is building up to a fight, and then that fight is like 10 minutes of people going back and forth. John Leguizamo also is in this for a cup of coffee. Just like the people that they were able to get, and even others, like no one will know this, but UFC fans, but Keith Jardine is in this, who is a UFC fighter.
Okay.
He is the guy who plays opposite the handlebar mustache heavy. There's these two big dudes, and he's the other big dude. And then I'm sure there's a bunch of Kevin Nash, the wrestler, plays the doorman.
Yeah.
And
And
my favorite, David Patrick Kelly. Anytime David Patrick Kelly pops up in a movie, I will. I'll cheer for that.
You had to point him out because he's been in several things that we watched, and
Crow.
like, wow, he has aged.
Oh yeah,
a lot. I guess
he's
that's been
be in his 70s.
That's been 30 years since The Crow, which I can't handle that.
Yeah,
the idea
born
that
in
the 90s
1951.
were. Oh man.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Yeah, he is 70. Oh my god.
Yeah. So
I'm not okay with that.
Yeah. So it's just it's one of those things. They got a ton of good character and sort of B tier actors that just lend it this this credibility, because it's not like Boondock Saints. As much as I love that movie, it's very much a low budget movie. Even with names, the couple of names that it gets, it's very much a low budget movie, and it sort of lives in that low budget space. But this is, they had some money behind this, and they had a decent cast, and this movie, it sparked this whole franchise of John Wick. There's a show coming up about the Continental. There's 4 movies, a 5th in production.
There's a show.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's gonna be on
that sounds amazing. Although, because it's called the Continental.
The Continental.
Your glove.
Your glove.
Did you know that it's only called Champagne if it's from the Champagne region of France? That's not the right accent at all. Yeah.
No, but yeah, if you're familiar with the Continental from 90s SNL, where
was that only the one skit, or were there several?
I think they did 2 or 3. They did at least 2. The Continental was Christopher Walken as a French lover boy.
Yeah.
And the whole shtick,
and it was like a POV from the point
POV
of
the cameraman. And the whole thing is that the whole shtick behind the scene is that a woman who hastily left his apartment when he sort of Pepe Le Pew'd on her is coming back for her glove. That she, you're back for your glove.
Your glove.
Your glove. They do we're just going to describe Saturday Night Live bits for this. They do a great bit where he opens it up and there's a ton of gloves in a little box that he has. Like, this is not the first woman to rush out and leave her glove.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
But yeah, the Continental. That actually segues me into a great thing that I'll talk about that I think this movie does great, and then subsequently fumbles it in the later installments. If you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you will know that I love when a movie seems to live in a world that has more going on than we're really told about in the movie. You know, that there's this whole other side, that there are things that are going on. And this movie represents that through the Continental. We're sort of given these little peaks of things early on. You see John Wick has a bunch of gold coins. And gold coins are the currency of the Continental. You know, you pay a gold coin to get into the Continental Club, the secret club. You pay for your room with gold coins, and subsequently, because there is this system with the Continental, there's this whole economy and this whole system that's grown up around these hitmen, which John Wick, former hitman, as we've established. Like there is David Patrick Kelly's dinner service, which comes to your house and cleans up, or comes to your, the location of your job and cleans up and leaves no trace behind. And you give him, he gets a little stack of coins. So there's this whole ecosystem. There's the Continental. The Continental has rules. Ian McShane plays the proprietor of the Continental, Winston, and there's no business done on Continental grounds, meaning the hitmen are safe there. It's considered a safe zone. No fighting, that's the one place you can go and not have to watch your back, essentially. And Lance Reddick plays the doorman, who I think is given a name in the next movie, but I don't think has a name at this point. Or not the doorman, the concierge, the front desk, and does like the faintest little sort of it's vaguely mysterious African accent, kind of, or
a little bit French
by way, right? I mean, like Ghana, like that sort of like African by way of French settlement kind of accent. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. And that's what I think reminded me of Gross Point Blank.
Yes,
is the idea of this whole like a rogue's code.
Yes.
Of
very much.
like you said, and I adore. Toward the end of the movie, it turns out that one of our main villains is using a church as a front.
Yeah.
which I adore as a churchgoer. And like, even when I'm out of town, I try to find a church and go to mass on Sunday, and I'm just cracking up at the idea of, oh wow, this one wasn't listed on the diocese website, but it was here, and I showed up, and they seemed surprised that people were coming to mass. And what was it? There was BuzzFeed has all these lists of weird experiences that I had, and one of them was, this person said they were just wandering down the street in wherever, New York, Philly, wherever it was, and they stopped into this Italian restaurant for dinner, but the staff seemed very surprised to have somebody there, and it was the best meal they ever had. And then they were like, no charge, just go. And they were like, oh my God, this is a front. This is, they had to find someone to make, so I love the idea of just the fronts, and people who don't know just stumble in and use them for the things that they're supposed to look like. I adore this.
With that story, which I've heard that story you're talking about, or maybe read it. I always like to imagine that it was just Olive Garden. Like they just went to the closest Olive Garden and the person was like, best Italian meal I ever had. It was
the tour of Italy.
It was just a tour of Italy. No shade on Olive Garden. I've been to Olive Garden once at this point in my life.
You need to go there sober.
And I've loved a tour of Italy now. I'm a huge fan. I've been all over Italy apparently. But so the Continental is great because it hints at this world that exists that they don't feel the need to flesh out. And then in every subsequent movie, they continue to flesh it out more and more until finally there is now a television show about the Continental. And that ruins it for me.
The mystery is gone.
Right, because now it's not this sort of secondary or like tertiary thing that's just kind of in the background. It becomes a focus, and it gets very, the next movie they get very into sort of some of the ins and outs of the Continental and stuff, and like it's just simple here. They establish the rules very easily, the coin system, this economy that exists around it. They Winston, Ian McShane's character, executes justice on someone who violates the rules. It's very simple. Another thing that factors into the sort of the way movies will set up boss characters is how Miss Perkins eventually gets taken care of by Ian McShane's Continental goons. So I love the Continental. I love the concept of the Continental, and other people did too, and it was cool. And they just continue to flesh it out to such a degree that I think like the third movie is very much about some kind of like, I can't remember, but one of the movies is very much about like a power struggle to own the Continental or something.
Yeah, it's they killed the goose that laid the golden egg.
Yeah, but I also I get it, right? Like this movie it has a self-contained plot. Like, and you can tell someone wrote this movie expecting to never get to explore these characters ever again. They put cool stuff in it that they wanted to see in it, and they gave a very sort of definitive ending. Like John Wick literally walks off into the sunrise, sort of deal. Like new dog with a new dog.
The new one isn't as cute.
No, new dog not as good.
No.
Yeah. So I just wish they had not leaned so hard into the Continental.
Yeah.
But unfortunately they did. And that happens in so many different movies, like a movie will have like this, criminal underworld. And then the subsequent sequels will be sending, delving. There are certain characters I don't need their backstory. I did not hate the Solo movie, the Han Solo sort of origin story, but I didn't need to know all that. Like that character was fine without fleshing out that backstory. I have the same sort of fears for the Furiosa movie that's coming out, that I won't care as much.
Well,
like,
there are some characters or properties that are just better in small doses. Like not the same thing at all, but oh my gosh, this is probably 10, 15 years ago. Project Runway was all over and everybody loved it and everybody loved Tim Gunn. And then they give him his own show.
Oh, that happens in reality television a lot.
I was like, oh, he's kind of dull when the whole show is about him. Like you need, it's like when you're making a dish of food. You can't be all vinegar or all sweet or all such. You need the balance.
Oh, and that happens all the time, right? When they take a like, oh, this one loudmouth character on this VH1 reality show then gets their own entire show.
And then people are like, no, thank you, too much.
Like, that's too much. It's sort of an ensemble thing works, and a little mystery works, I think is what we're really saying. So I love the world beyond. World beyond is what I wrote up there. Like that's what I kind of call that when a movie has a world beyond, and they just don't feel the need to explain it to me. It's great, cool. Like you've given me enough information, and let's move on. And in this, they in this franchise, they really start to beat it to death.
Don't say beat it to death.
Oh no, I know.
The dog. Moment of silence for the dog. It was just so cute. In one of our previous episodes, I said something along the lines of, so many people that I know, they say once they had kids, they couldn't watch a movie where a kid was hurt or died or anything. Yeah. And that does not especially bother me. And sometimes I wonder, do I have a moral deficiency because it doesn't bother me? People are like that about dogs, mostly dogs, but animals of any kind being hurt or killed. Oh, yeah. And that has never struck me as a thing to be bothered by either. But this one I knew going in that it was going to happen. Yeah. And I said at one point, tell me when I need to start watching from between my fingers because I love this dog already. It's puppy delivered in a crate, sent by his dead wife to help heal his broken heart. Like how can you not? And then it's like a beagle or a basset or something with the big ears, and it's just
and they do it's so much more effective because it's not just a dog. Yeah, like it could have been his dog of 10 years and still set the movie on this path of revenge or whatever. Yeah, but the fact that it is literally his like grief dog. Yeah, that his dead wife arranged to have sent post. From beyond the grave.
Which is sort of a neat trick. Like, how did she know when she was going to die and there would be a puppy available?
There was a plug pulled. Like, I think she very clearly knew the end was there.
Oh, so, well, okay. Yeah,
I think it's 100, like it's super choreographed, through the, so at some point she had a close friend or confidant or, her phone and was able to arrange this sort of thing. But so it's super,
Yeah.
manipulative isn't the word, but that's really what it is. Like
Yeah.
they really invest you in this dog.
Well, and he has a speech at one point because somebody says it was just a fucking dog, which is like, that is a person who's never owned a pet.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? But he says, okay, it wasn't just, this was a gift from my wife and I didn't have to grieve alone. And that is like, that says a lot.
Yeah. And at the same time, like, I hate that they did that because you didn't have to do that.
Well, I don't know. Some people are kind of obtuse.
I know, and that's
and I
why
don't think they overdid it.
They didn't, but that's why you have to do that. I get it, but like that is this film is made with an expert enough hand. Again, considering it's a quote unquote inexperienced director. It's made it with enough of an expert hand that that's all communicated. And yeah, like you say, like maybe you need to say, but you know, you. Like, I'm like, if that just wasn't there, like it's a little too much to say, like, let me explain to you now why the dog had, was more than like, we know. Like,
let me explain emotional intelligence to you.
Like Vigo's problem, Vigo is our like main villain. Vigo's problem is that he doesn't understand that he thinks that somehow this equation of dog for son kind of thing is like, off balance because it's just a dog. It's just a dog. Like, no.
Also, like your son sucks.
So, your son sucks.
I
mean, this is a good theme in a lot of movies of like these mob boss guys who worked scraped to build their kingdom, and then they just have a one or more just completely unappreciative kids.
It's the what's his face in Renfield is similar.
Yeah, or this.
Isn't Run All Night? Isn't that the same kind of thing? A mob boss and a terrible son.
I think so. Yeah, and House of Usher on. Yeah, same kind of thing. Just the worst nightmare apparently of someone who rises to power is to have kids who are just shitty people,
and it's even worse as a criminal because there are fewer routes for them to take.
I also feel like it's saying something like this is probably what happens. When you do this, like you had to struggle, your children didn't. Yeah. Which at the same time, like our kids not having to struggle. So maybe we're raising
really well. I don't know, just a little bit. That's I read somewhere the best parenting thing you can do is run out of things from time to time.
Yeah.
And that happens a lot. So I'm like, okay, we're doing fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not the end. Yeah, it's not suddenly the end of the world.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of the things I was talking about before is Replacement Killers, and actually I may move that movie up just to show it to you so that we can talk about the parallels between the two movies. It has this style that had a big effect on me when I watched it the first time. That being Replacement Killers. And the first time I watched John Wick, I just was constantly reminded of it. Mm-hmm. Replacement Killers also has a sort of set piece club gunfight in the same way that John Wick does. So it's one of those things where it draws big parallels for me, and a lot of that is in the use of lighting. Putting something action oriented in a club is a great way to be able to justify non-standard lighting, like The Crow does it. Mm-hmm. With my favorite fight scene in there when he's in the boardroom above the club and the music's playing the whole time and lights are flashing, and mm-hmm. It's like it all just blends together. And yeah, this movie has not just visually when it comes to like what's being put on film, great style. It also just has a great style. Like everyone's well dressed. Mm-hmm. John Wick puts a suit on, like a 3-piece suit on to go and murder people. Like people are coming to invade his house, and so he puts a vest and a tie and a suit on.
Well, I noticed that, and all the hitmen had identical suits on, and then at one point, I think in the club, they're like club staff, but also goons, and they're all dressed identically. And I said, "Oh, isn't it convenient that all the guys he's supposed to kill wear red shirts?" But it's part of a uniform, and it's a look, and it's very slick.
Yes, and there's other things like I forget what it's called. I used to know what it's called. But the design of his gun, it has this extension to the barrel. It might be a flash suppressor or something. I don't know what it is. But even that, like even down to that, there are a lot of times when visual choices are made for weapons in movies that don't actually make any sense. Like having a character walk around with a with a Desert Eagle, which is this 50 caliber hand cannon. It's not a practical weapon for a shootout, but it looks really good on film, and you can get it like nickel plated and it's all silvery. It's the same kind of thing with, although they made it work, with Dirty Harry having a 357 Magnum. And all that. That's not a practical gun. It's, you know, it's not got a lot of shots in it. It's big, and it's you know, it's that kind of thing of they made choices that were aesthetic while not, like, he's just using standard guns. I don't know if they're 9mm or 45s or whatever they are. I didn't really dig into it deep enough, but I like that. I like that they were like, well, let's class up the guns. Let's make them look cool. But he's not using these like crazy one-off weapons.
Yeah, if you know anything about guns, it doesn't take you out of it.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's there are so many other professions where I do know a little bit about it, and seeing them do XYZ instead of the right thing really takes me out. Even though I know that whatever the regular thing is totally boring. Like, could you find some middle ground that was a little better? So yeah, I understand none of what you just said, but I appreciate the effort that you're talking about.
Sure.
Also, like, you know way more about guns than I thought you did, just from the things that you just said.
Oh, I mean, you know, it's a lifetime. I mean, I'm not I don't care for guns. I don't own guns. I don't care for them in general. I don't think that they're necessary. But I grew up in the South.
Yeah, just by osmosis.
I played video games growing up, and like, just through osmosis, I've learned a lot. And I think guns are interesting, in a lot of ways. Ballistics, the mechanisms, all that stuff's super interesting. There's this game, I think it's called Receiver, that I have on PC, and it's literally a game about like seeing into the inner workings of a gun, and it's super super neat. I've been talking a lot. Why don't we take a break from me talking? Why don't you tell me what you thought of John Wick, just overall?
Well, do you happen to know, was this always envisioned as Keanu playing John Wick, or was there anybody else that they thought of for it?
Not sure.
Because I think, and we've talked about this before, I think in Bill and Ted and maybe some other, one of the Dracula movies that he was in, he's taken this arc where at the start of his career, everybody thought he was just sort of a hottie, but also stupid. And he had this sort of surfer air, and something around, I don't know, maybe after The Matrix, he became like the internet's favorite person, and everyone is, he must be protected at all costs.
Yeah, like sad Keanu and all that stuff.
And now everyone tells these sob stories about him, about, River Phoenix died, and his wife died, and his daughter died, and and now his dog died. And it's interesting to see that that personality, that actor with that sort of backstory or public image playing this hitman who's sort of in touch with his emotions, but not really.
I think he also just, he, over the years, he's gotten a reputation as a reliable guy you can throw into a sort of an action movie when you need to, but I think stuff like Point Break probably started that sort of transition where he's not playing the surfer in that movie, but he is surfing in that movie. Like, he's not doing the surfer character. He's doing he's
got enough physicality to make it work.
And then, Speed, of course, I think cemented his viability as an action, sort of an everyman. I think he was almost filling that sort of Bruce Willis role. Yeah. Of like an everyman, good guy.
When did that come out? 93, 94?
Oh, okay, yeah.
I was, 16. Yes. That was a formative moment.
Oh yeah.
When he and Sandra Bullock kiss at the end, like, you can see tongue, and I was like, oh my, yes please.
Oh my.
Me sitting in the theater with my dad 2 seats away, like, this is awkward.
But I don't know. To answer your question plainly, I do not know. I don't know if this was always envisioned as being a vehicle for him, or if it just happened this way.
I think he works in this role much better than somebody who is just a pure action guy would. Like, he's not doing this anymore, but Jean-Claude Van Damme always seemed to me like he was just there for the body stuff. And nothing really behind the eyes. Jason Statham strikes me that way too. I feel like there's more to him. He just doesn't ever bring it to the role.
I don't know. I think Statham could have been good in this role, because it is a role for a sort of a reserved actor.
Yeah.
Versus, I always think of him as closer to, a Bruce Willis type than like a Sylvester Stallone type or that sort of like an action hero, because he does have that. I mean, the British part doesn't help him always, but he has that sort of everyman quality. And that was the thing, mentioned before, Chow Yun-fat, like that was his thing. Like he just looks like a dude.
He's got a little bit of a dad bod.
Yeah.
I mean, muscular, but from what I remember, he's sort of got like a round face.
Oh yeah, Chow Yun-fat, he's got a round face.
Yeah, he does look like a normal.
Yeah, he just looks like a dude. And and I will show you the Replacement Killers. I'll also show you Hard Boiled, which is kind of like his movie. So Chow Yun-fat was John Woo's guy.
Okay.
So like when you think about doves flying out of something as someone shooting, like that's, although that happens in Face Off and
man, I haven't seen a good dove
stuff,
flight in a while.
but that is very much like Chow Yun-fat doing that, like stuff flying through the air in slow motion. Like that's specifically from The Killers is where that's from. The Killers I don't know if I will ever show you The Killers or not for sure. It's great, but yeah, like I might even do like we may do a Chow Yun-fat month, and just show you Replacement Killers and Hard Boiled.
Okay.
Yeah. So, she got the coughs.
Just a little.
Yeah, we're almost over this.
Just
like
little.
We've literally one or the other or both of us have been sick for the entire April run of this.
You could do a sound analysis on our audio and be like, and here is where they really kicked it. Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
I
on overall
find it interesting to track sort of the nationalities of the bad guys in American properties over time. Like for a while, and I don't know, like the 50s, 60s, the Russians were, of course, the bad guys, but it was because it was nationally, like it was the KGB. They were over in Moscow plotting against us. And then, communism fell and we were like, oh my God, I guess Arabs are the bad guys now. And then Africans every so often, and South American drug lords. And then Russians started to sneak back in, except they were here now and they're plotting. And it's always fascinating to see.
I would tend to put this though, not in the terrorist timeline, like not in the sort of Red Dawn.
No, it's like the mobster. That's what I mean. It's different. Well, that's fair.
So I was going to say it's more like at one point it was the Italians and then maybe a little Irish and then the Chinese came in, syndicates, and then the Mexican cartels, and now we're back to the Russians. Well, that's as these sort of stand-ins for Italians.
Well, that's fair. Yeah, like when you mafia bad guys. Yeah. I mean, I think there was a period when bad guys were the Russian government and then the Chinese government and North Korean government. But that's okay. I see that.
No, I see what you're saying. But I when I'm classifying the timeline, I'm going more of that. Like
that's
this
fair.
in the 70s, this would have been the Italian mob. Yeah. And then as time went on, it was the Chinese, bringing the drugs in to, from the port, and then it was the Mexican cartels sneaking it in, and now we're back to the Russians. So I know you've seen this, and you're a fan of it. The parallels between this and The Equalizer.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too, because Denzel Washington is far older than Keanu Reeves, but still this sort of older, because Keanu was in his 50s.
I don't know. He's
not quite
ageless.
His 60s yet, but he is kind of. But at this point, he would have been in his late 40s, early 50s, I think.
Probably.
So definitely sort of an older dude, and Denzel has also that sort of very reserved, like, I just want to do my job, man.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to kill you, but and also being very like efficient with it.
Yes.
And I noticed, so John Wick is in this club, not part of the Continental, right? But
no.
Similar clientele, it seemed.
It's specifically the Russians' club.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Vigo's club.
Okay. And Yosef, who is just the douchey, ne'er-do-well son, is there in a hot tub with all of his friends. And Wick goes in and he methodically kills all like the goons and the bodyguards and but there's women there in the hot tub with them, and none of them are hurt, which I appreciated. I don't know. Is that part of like the assassin code, is no collateral damage?
Yeah, I think it is. Because you don't want gets messy when civilians die. It gets messy.
Yeah.
And I think more specifically, they talk about the old guard, which is Marcus, who we haven't really talked that much about, which is Willem Dafoe's character, who initially is recruited to take out John Wick, and they are like two of the old guard of assassins, but eventually it is revealed that he's basically helping him, protecting him, so he can complete his mission, and I think that is a thing, because we're very distinctly shown the new guard, which is Miss Perkins, who doesn't respect the rules and doesn't really care about collateral damage, and will kill for free for any reason. And you get the sense that Marcus and John Wick and the others, there's another hitman that's shown that ends up getting killed by Miss Perkins. You get the feeling those guys, they would not do that. It's business for them, and collateral damage isn't good for business.
And none of them would say it's just a fucking dog,
right? Exactly.
And I think that that's at the beginning. So Wick meets Yosef at like a gas station, and they supply cars to a chop shop, and they want his car because it's a vintage something. I don't know, whatever. And he's like, no, it's not for sale. Oh, I like the dog, and the dog's not for sale. And they show up. And they take the car and they beat him up, and then for good measure, just sort of they kill the dog. And then they take the car to this chop shop owned by John Leguizamo, who knows John Wick. They don't know that, and I think it's when they say, we fucked up his dog, when Leguizamo is like, nope, absolutely not, get out. I'm not doing. So
he knows from the very beginning whose car it is. Because obviously John Wick would have had this car leaving.
I think the dog though was like the cherry on top of the absolutely fucking not Sunday.
Yeah, and you see John is not when he comes to the chop shop, he's just like, it was here, I sent it away. And Wick is like, all right, and then that's it. Like that's the end of their dealings. Like there's no
well, and I thought so. So Leguizamo punches out Yosef, and Yosef is like, my dad's gonna get you in trouble, you're gonna he's not gonna do anything about it because he's a little punk. I don't think we ever see him really standing up for himself or anybody else. He just runs. He lets other people do all the work, and then he runs. And then Vigo calls Leguizamo and is like, I hear you hit my son. And Leguizamo's like, yes, do you know why? Because he hurt John Wick. And Vigo's like, oh
that's oh, I heard you struck my son. He stole John Wick's car and killed his dog.
And
then he just hangs up the phone. That's just the end.
Say no more. Okay, prepare for battle.
And you get and it's interesting to me when thinking about this movie of it's only been 5 years since John Wick has retired. So you assume if this kid is maybe 20, he was young enough that he was probably being shielded from a lot of the goings on. And, one of the last jobs that John Wick did, and it sort of is vague, but it was this impossible job that Vigo gave him so that in exchange for being let out of the business, in which he seemingly killed and gained leverage on a bunch of people in such a way that it allowed Vigo to rise to power as the number one Russian drug man in the city. And it's the fact that it's only been 5 years and Yosef has no appreciation or understanding for what went on and how the power was gained and what they owe to John Wick. And of course no one's talking about it because,
it's sort of a complete, you want to disappear. Okay. You disappear completely, which I respect that a little bit. Although you got to talk about who the icons are that we don't touch. Well, I sort of, talk about backstory that we don't get, but I'm imagining Yosef's mother is some floozy living in St. Petersburg. And when Yosef hit, 18, whatever, she's like, go to your father. He'll train you to be a man. And Yosef's like, so you're my dad. Okay. And so, cause he doesn't seem broken up when the kid is killed. He doesn't seem to want to protect him too much. So
he definitely seems to want to protect him.
Well, but more for his own sake.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a legitimate...
No tears are shed, put it that way.
Sure, but I think in part it's because Vigo literally trades his life for his sons.
Well,
he literally is like, did you let me live? I'll tell you where he's at.
Right, and would you do that?
I think Viggo is a shrewd enough businessman, but
I think he's also a terrible person with a shitty kid.
Absolutely. But if he had he knows more than anybody where this is going to end.
Mm-hmm.
And so if he had no appreciation for his son, he'd just give him up right away. Like when on the first call that he makes to John Wick, he would say, I understand that he has wronged you. He is here. You have my blessing, you know, and then that would be it. So just the fact that he knows, I mean, he says, you know, get everybody, bring everybody.
Yeah.
Like he knows what's happening. I think he loves his son in his own sort of way, but of course he's in the position that he's in. He is this, he's evil.
Yeah.
You know, he's not a moral person. So he loves him his love only goes so far.
Yeah. He loves him as a tool that can do something for him.
But I think, if he really didn't have any affection for him,
maybe
he would just
he'd
give him up right away. So I mean, it's not, you know, we're arguing the minutia here, but
maybe.
Yeah.
One other thing that I did appreciate, speaking of the Russianness of it all, none of the dialogue in Russian is subtitled.
Oh yeah. I like that.
Which, and including some that John Wick is saying back to them. Mm-hmm. You don't know, and you don't really need to. Like I always want to, because I want the depth of things, but you can just tell it's sinister, or it's, you know, I'm so angry with you, I'm speaking in Russian because I forget the English words for asshole, or, you know, whatever. That adds a lot of depth to it, I think.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I really didn't hit is this movie has a very specific, and I don't know, I'm like I said, not a gun guy. Like what I know is how to shoot like a rifle, like a 22, or like a 30-06, just like a backyard shooting at cans and or hunting kind of thing. And that's not even been for 30 years that anything like that has happened, that I've done any of that. So I'm not up on the latest assassin techniques with handguns, but this movie does creates a very specific style. A lot of movies want to have these like standoff gunfights, you know, peek out from behind a car, you know, you think like police gunfights in movies and stuff. People are pinned down, etc. The way that they designed John Wick's style of gunplay, he's always moving forward. He's always always finishing people. You know, he'll always come back to someone. If you know, he'll have 3 people to deal with, and he'll disarm one while shooting another, and then shoot the third. Then he'll headshot the first guy. Yeah. Headshot the middle guy that he's been wrestling with, and then headshot the last guy.
Yeah, you're not leaving anybody behind who can come back and finish you off. Like you thought they were dead, but they weren't.
Exactly. Like he leaves nothing to chance. He puts very
clean.
Yes, he often puts 2 shots in people's heads.
Yeah.
Like the bearded handlebar mustache guy. Yeah. He puts his head down on a table and shoots him twice in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's a very good shot. Like this Willem Dafoe, I take it back, is shooting people like through the headphones.
No, that's Wick.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Wick.
Yeah.
Dafoe is Marcus is dead by then. We never see Marcus kill anybody but outside of the church scene where he kills the one. He shoots the one.
Oh, that's right. 'Cause the first one was just like a warning to be like, she's coming.
Yeah. He gives him a warning. But they go. Sorry,
Willem Dafoe is a tough actor to read, because we've talked about some actors who are always a certain type, and if you see, you know, what Eric Roberts, you know he's going to turn out to be a bad guy. Yeah. Willem Dafoe does not have that. Sometimes he is, like in Spider-Man movies, he turned out to be a villain. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he's just a guy in the background, like he's a cop in Inside Man. He's just like a beat cop who is just there for like exposition and plot movement, but isn't a good or a bad guy. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, he's done things with like Lars von Trier where he's completely insane, and you never know what you're going to get, which I think makes him a very good addition to a cast, because you can't guess the plot. Yeah. But I was like, is he actually trying to kill John Wick, or is he protecting him? And I was pretty sure it was the latter, but never knew for sure.
Yeah, you never know for sure. But yeah, back to the gun stuff. Yeah, the way that he handles it, he always keeps the gun tight in. You know, there's this desire to have a hero hold a gun out at arm's length, one handed. There's even the sort of police grip where you put one hand in the cup, one hand in the other, and sort of support it. But he's very close. He's very like people who are proficient at shooting, and you'll see this with military too. Yeah, they hold their guns in the way that allows them the quickest motion to be in ready position or whatever, and they keep them stable. And you know, it actually is funny because I do a lot of over the years I've done a lot of sort of amateur photography stuff, and that's the thing you learn early on is you keep your elbows tight and you keep the camera close, and that's how you keep a steady hand without a tripod or something. And he's doing the same thing. He's got his elbows are tight. He's got the gun in close. He extends it when he needs to, but yeah, and so he can move very quickly. He can move the gun. Like it's really technical.
Yeah. Well, shockingly, looking cool and being effective do not overlap on the Venn diagram all the time.
And I think it's a particular style of shooting. I think I've seen competitions with it. But yeah, Keanu did all that stuff. Like he got really good at all that. Ran through all that, and I think it's really fun to see a character that is, whether it is or not. Like I said, I'm so out of practice with having shot any gun, I couldn't tell you. But whether or not it is an authentic shooting technique that really leads to like hitting more of your shots and being more efficient, it looks like it is. Even you know, somebody might tell you like, oh, that shit don't work.
Yeah.
Great. But it looks like it should work. You know, it looks as efficient as Sylvester Stallone holding an M60 machine gun with one hand and just spinning around. That it looks as efficient as that looks cool.
Yeah.
You know, like that.
Well, and then this looks cool in its own way because of its efficiency.
And there's a lot of jujitsu in there. He's rolling around with guys. He's, you know, he'll roll. A guy will take a shot, and he's, you know, or a guy will come into frame to take a shot, and he knows exactly where your average person's going to be pointing the gun. So he goes low. There's great scenes where they highlight his thought process. He's on two different sides of a wall with a guy. Yeah. And the guy turns and kind of just blind fires, and he ducks and fires low to the guy's foot. He does that a couple of times.
Speaking of, that was in his house. Please tell me he restores that gorgeous house.
Oh, I hope so.
And goes back to it, because that whole thing was beautiful. Like, and not in like a fancy bougie architecture magazine way, but just like simple and like nice. You could live there. And I
want to say it gets destroyed in one of the movies.
No,
or he destroys it, like, you know, razes it to the ground kind of thing. But yeah, and they really do a good job with all that gun stuff. But just in general of showing you the kind of character that Wick is, and this is something that you don't really get until you watch it a couple times. But there's one in particular, the particular scene, a part of a scene in the club where he's fighting with a guy and he's got a knife, and they go back and forth a couple times, and he ends up stabbing the guy in the chest, and then he takes the knife and he stabs the guy through the bottom of his chin.
Yeah.
But then he keeps eye contact with the guy.
Yeah. As
the guy slowly starts to fall, and then at the point when the life leaves the eyes, he pulls the knife and goes to the next thing.
Yeah.
Just that says, that's a way with no words to say so much about the character, is that he's killed so many people that he knows the moment that this guy dies by the way that his eyes look, and he's watching and waiting, and there's all this stuff going on around him, but he is waiting until this kill is done before he moves on to the next one. Like, that sort of stuff is just next level stuff. And I don't know if that's coming from the director or the stunt coordinator or Keanu or the writer.
It's terrifying is what it is.
It's terrifying.
And I'm just like, Bridget Moynihan, if you weren't already dead, I would tell you to run, because that does shit to a person.
But I think that's just it. I think that John is showing that it's a job for him.
Mm-hmm.
That it is, because he doesn't have a bloodlust. He has no expression on his face. You know, this is just it's the same as me at work configuring, you know, a piece of equipment. to put on a network. Like it's just a part of his job. Like he's got no emotion. He's got nothing. Like I think he is able to compartmentalize it in this way that I think makes him, as you know, as they call him, the Baba Yaga, like that makes him this boogeyman because he doesn't have to struggle with it. Like he's found this way to disconnect the work that he's doing from his emotions in a way that, you know, didn't leave him completely.
It's a little bit like Liam Neeson in Taken.
Right. Yeah.
I would say Liam Neeson does have a little bit of a revenge thing because there's all this daddy stuff with little girl, blah, 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 blah. But also like the training has not left you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But John Wick, you should watch it if you haven't seen it. It's got a lot of big action. The one complaint about this movie consistently is CGI blood splatters. But the pace of this, you probably didn't even notice. When he shoots guys in the head, like the blood that comes out is not practical. It's CGI blood.
Okay.
And a lot of the muzzle flashes and things are CGI. And it just leads to things not looking the way that they should. There's a certain, like a muzzle flash is incredibly bright, and on the sensor of a camera, it washes it out. And so when you're doing fake muzzle flashes, you can't get the same, or it's really difficult to get the same result when you need to do 1,000 muzzle flashes in this fake muzzle flashes in this movie. And don't get me wrong, like we talked about The Crow, Brandon Lee died because of improper gun safety. Yeah. You had the whole Rust situation. Like there's no good reason to fire a blank round at another human being on a movie set anymore.
Yes, we can sacrifice some accuracy for safety.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm willing to, and that's the thing. Like, that's why I say that's the one knock you can make on this movie, but I don't hold it against this movie at all, because for Keanu Reeves, the actor, to be able to hold a gun 3 inches from someone's face and pull the trigger, and to be using probably some kind of air-driven gun, something with some CO2, like a airsoft gun, that will have an action so that the slide will go back when he pulls the trigger. Being able to do that on film and then put the blood in and put the muzzle flash in and not risk anybody's health, you know, yes, 100%.
Definitely.
1,000%.
I'm okay with that.
But it's just one of those things where, like, the first time through, you're like, in 2014, I was not as sort of, you know, my viewpoint on this was not as developed as it is now. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, God, the blood looks so dumb. And it does, like real blood, real squibs going off. They look so much better. But yeah, that's if that's the one knock you can make on this movie, that sometimes the bullet hits and the muzzle flashes and the blood spray doesn't look great. Make that. I'll take that all day long. Like for the safety trade-off. But yeah, that's the one knock you can make. But otherwise I think it's a simple, well-written, well-performed, well-directed movie that's got a bunch of people in it you'll recognize even if you don't know their names, and it's fun and you should watch it.
But be aware about the dog. Like, just
the dog dies.
Oh God. Oh, but it's toward the beginning though, so if you wanted to start, like, I don't know, 30 minutes in.
No, you got
to sit through it. Okay.
You need the emotional hit. Like, you need to understand what is driving this man, and you need to understand. And it's not explicit. It's it's a blurred out half. You know, so it's like someone hits a sock puppet. I'm gonna go
with the dog didn't suffer.
I'm gonna burst your bubble here.
No,
because clearly the dog suffered. No. Because the most heartbreaking part of this movie is that the dog, having been hit with an aluminum baseball bat 10 feet away from Keanu, crawls over and dies right beside him.
I'm choosing to believe that it didn't suffer.
Okay. I'm not gonna harsh your buzz.
Let me do it. Also, I'm gonna go with Bridget Moynihan only suffered from her disease, and she was not tortured for the sake of the plot, which we've talked about is a thing that I don't like. She had lots of painkillers.
Yes.
She was fine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's John Wick.
Yeah. Well, folks, we would love to know what you think about this. Who's your favorite surprise actor in this? Let us know. You can you can get in touch with us a couple different ways. You can send us an email, or you can find us on Facebook. Our handle is the same for both. It's YSMY Podcast, YSMY for You Show Me Yours. We're at gmail.com, or message us on Facebook. Also on Facebook, we list. We put up links to our latest episodes when they post. We have new episodes every other Wednesday. So 2 weeks from today, no matter when you're listening, there'll be a new episode up. Next episode, it will be May. So after the first date month is over, and it's my turn. And I am going to be showing Dave one of the family faves from the Wonderworks series. If you watched PBS as a kid in the 80s, you know all about Wonderworks. It was like Hallmark Hall of Fame, except for kids. A couple months ago, we watched Anne of Green Gables. That was originally a Wonderworks thing.
Wow.
So we're going to watch another one from that category. It's called Miracle at Moreau. Or I don't speak French, so it might be pronounced better than that. But right. Moreau is how I'm going to say it. So,
Looking forward to it.
Yes, thank you. All right, well, we will see you next time. In the meantime, this has been You Show Me Yours. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye. The You Show Me Yours theme song is Uplifting Electronic Indie by Winnie the Moog from filmmusic.io. When you're ready.
Yeah, I was about, and then you...
Whenever you're ready. Everybody is waiting on... We have been waiting on you the whole time.
I was ready, and then you got me unready.